So we have Roxy as a vendor. We have Billabong as a vendor. O'Neill as a vendor. And Hurley as a vendor. I don't need these 2 extra rows, so I'm going to right click and hide them. So now I need to figure out all of my sales for my Roxy items. So first off, I will go to my Roxy items, take my 130 units, and also the 563 units. So for my total Roxy items, we have 693 unit sales. We'll do the same for Billabong. So for all of the Billabong styles, we have unit sales of 1,844 units. For our Hurley styles, we have 2,614 units sold. And for our O'Neill styles, we have 985 units sold. We want to add this up, and since we took the totals for each of our vendors, our total here should always match our original total. So let's auto sum this. We have sold total 6,136 units. This matches. We are correct. We now need to do the same thing for the on-hand for our vendor. So a more simpler way that I can do this is I can do our equal sign, and I can take my Roxy on-hand for the fleece pullover plus the on-hand for the Roxy short sleeve logo tee. Now I can do this for Billabong as well. Select my 2,832 units for the Billabong on-hand fleece plus the 2,550 units for the short sleeve logo tee. I will do this for O'Neill. And I will now do this for Hurley. Once again, my unit on hand for the vendor should also add up to the total style on hand. 19,896 units on hand. Yes, that does match over here. So now we will need to find the same information once again, but now we are looking at the percent to total sales based on vendor. Take our 693 units divided by our total of 6,136 units. I'm going to make sure I lock that number, and I will use my fill formatting. Once again, same thing over here for the on hand. Take my 4,827 units on hand, divide it by my total on hand. I need to make sure I lock my total on hand so I can use my fill formatting properly. Type F4. It will automatically lock that number. Hit enter. And let's use our fill formatting and convert our percents. We will auto sum our percent totals to make sure we're adding up to our 100%. So we can see overall, Roxy has accounted for 11.3% of our total sales, but the on-hand inventory accounts for 24.3% of our total sales. So we can see we have a lot more units on hand than what we are selling. That means we're probably missing opportunity in other areas where sales may be stronger than what we actually have on hand. So if you look at Billabong, our sales are 30.1% on hand. I'm sorry, 30.1% in sales with 27.1% on hand. That means our sales are greater than the percent of on-hand inventory that we have. So let's go ahead and look at the sell-through information for all of these vendors. Take our 4-week sales, divided by our 4-week sales, plus our unit on hand. Put brackets around this, and we will hit enter. Let's convert this to a percent, increase our decimal place, and I will now do fill formatting. So once again, all of our totals should always match the original totals because nothing is changing as far as what we're adding. The only thing that is changing is how we are grouping the cells to add them together. But the actual data itself is not changing, so everything should still add up to that total number. We'll go ahead and bold all of our totals as well. Next, we need to look at all these styles based on the fabric. So we see we have fleece and we have knits. So I will take the 4-week unit sales for all of the fleece styles. And I will now take all of the unit cells for our knit styles. Once again, our total should add up 6,136 units. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for our on-hand information now. Add these numbers up. And we're at 19,896 units on hand. Figure out our percent to total sales. Look at our percent to total on hands. And let's look at our sell-through percents now. Okay, so what we are saying here is the fleece has represented 31.2% of our total sales while representing about 48.5% of our total inventory. Sell-through percent of only 16.5%. So we will have a lot more inventory on hand than what we needed to sell because we only really needed about 32% of the inventory to be in fleece because that's where our sales are currently at. You can see for knits we have a lot of missed opportunity as we're outselling the amount of inventory we have. We have sold about 69% of our sales have come from knits, while only 52% of our inventory accounts for the knits. So there's a lot of opportunity there where we could have sold, we could have had more on-hand units to continue to help drive those sales we are seeing in knits. So looking at the sell-through percents, the fleece, for the 4 weeks that they have been on the sales floor, we have only sold through 16.5% of our total inventory. For the knits, for the 4 weeks they have been on the floor, we have sold through 29.2% of the total inventory. Overall, once again, we can see all of these styles have sold about 23.6% of our total inventory. Once again, we will now go ahead and look at this based on the classification. So in our classification we have a pullover, we have a hoodie, we have a logo tee, And I'm just making sure that's all we have. Okay, so we have our pullovers, our hoodies, and our logo tees. We don't need this row, so I'm going to hide it, or you can delete it. So now we will go ahead and do the same thing and figure out the sum of all of our pullovers for their unit sales. I will do the same thing. Find all of the sales for our hoodies. And we can do this for our logo tees. Once again, all of these should add up to the 6,136 units. We will go ahead and complete the same thing for our on-hands. As well as our hoodies. And let's also find all of our on-hand data for our logo tees. Once again, all of these numbers should add up to that 19,896 units, which they do, so we know all of our math has been correct. Next, we need to figure out the percent to total sales for the classification. So we take our 405 units, divide it into our total unit sales of 6,136 units. Let's lock that total number so we can use our fill formatting. Drag it down, and let's convert this to our percents. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for our on-hand total now. Take our pullover on-hand of 4,260 units divided by our total 18,896 units. Let's lock our total so we can use our fill formatting and drag it down. So we can see the pullovers represented 6.6% of our total sales, while representing 21.4% of our total on hand. Let's now figure out our sell-through for all of the styles in this based on class. Sales divided by our sales plus our on-hand data. Convert this to percent, reflect one decimal place. Let's drag it down to the total level. So we can now see the hoodies have sold through 21.9% of the inventory we bought in the 4-week sales that it has been selling. So this is simply how we can look at all of these different styles based on the vendor, based on the fabric, and also based on the classification. You can see all of the total data reflected is all the same because none of our total data has changed. The only thing that has changed is how we are just grouping the styles together to look at the sales in a different way. We can now look to see how the vendor has performed. We can now look to see how the actual fabrics have performed. And we can now look to see at how the different classifications have performed. This will help us become better buyers in what we need to purchase in all of these different areas. So this is how we complete the first tab on the Merchandise Data tab in Excel exercise number 4.